Now, the only way that you can escape mind control of the cult bubble that you might be in, let's say you're a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses religion and you're on the fence about it. Well, you don't need to be on the fence any longer. I'm going to help you think critically today and examine how faithfully Watchtower has actually been translating their Bible. And the answer is they're not very faithful about translating their Bible. I want you to think critically. In fact, you're commanded to think critically. 1 Thessalonians 5:20 through 21 says, do not despise prophecies. So if Watchtower were actually prophesying and being faithful, you should be able to test it, because the next command is test everything, hold fast to what is good. And in Greek, those are imperatives. If you've noticed, I put the Greek down there and all the little endings there that end with tau, epsilon, te. So you have eta is one ending, eta. Those endings are actually commands. That's how you know something is in the imperative. So you are commanded to not just receive things, but to also test them and prove them to be true. But Watchtower tends to actually keep you from looking at stuff, and instead their defense of what they do sounds more like this.
Dare you question my power?
How dare you question my authority?
How dare you question me?
Dare you question me?
It's out of the question, and it's against the rules.
Don't question rules.
Rules.
But that's not actually an argument when someone talks to you like that. In fact, that's a sign that you're in a cult. That's a sign that people are teaching you false teachings when they don't want you to question them. And then they make up teachings like, oh, if you question the rules, then you're unstable in your faith and you might not be saved. Well, the Bible says otherwise. It commends the Bereans for checking into things to make sure that the things they're being taught are true. And you're supposed to do the same thing. It's a command. And so I'm going to help you today to obey that command by showing you how to test out the translation of Jehovah's Witnesses and their New World Translation. So what I want to do is I want to show you a particular verse, Zechariah 12:10. Now, before we start, I want you to understand that Zechariah chapter 12, the whole chapter is God himself speaking, and God has a message. So this is God's own words to the people of Israel. And notice what God says, but I'm going to read it first in the New World Translation. That's the Jehovah's Witness translation. And then I'm going to read it to you in what I would call a real translation. And I'm going to defend why the evangelical translation of the Bible is the correct one. But let's go here. So Zechariah 12:10, it says, I will pour out on the house of David. And by the way, the I there is God himself. I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of favor and supplication, and they will look on the one whom they pierced, and they will wail over him as they would wail over an only son. Now, I want to let you know that is a sneaky translation, and it's a deceptive translation, because if we go to, say, the NASB, notice in the highlighted section there, what it says. It doesn't say, and they will look at him. It says, so that they will look at me who they have pierced. Whoa. God is talking, and God just says, they're going to look at me who they pierced, which kind of tells you that Jesus must be God. In fact, I've made that point with prior videos that defend the deity of Jesus Christ. This matters, by the way, because the problem of the world is that Adam doubted God, and the solution to the world is that people begin to trust God. Well, if Jesus isn't God and we're told that our salvation is by trusting in Jesus, then God's plan would sound something like, hey, they didn't trust me, maybe I could get them to trust somebody else. But that's not the message of the Bible. The message of the Bible is God is restoring his hope in himself by becoming a man, so that when we trust in Jesus, who is God, we are coming back to God and trusting in him, unlike what Adam did at the very beginning. So that really ties up the whole message of the Bible and gives it consistency, coherence. It's one and the same story of God wants trust back in himself. And here we see in Zechariah 12:10, we see God is saying they're going to look at me whom they have pierced. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to translate this. In fact, we're going to translate two words. Well, mostly one word. But what I want you to see is that the grammar on this is solid. I mean, we're going to go way above and beyond in order to prove that the translation of the NASB and other translations is correct. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the concept of pronominal suffixes. So if you look at this, so we have, they will look at me whom they have pierced, and the Hebrew word is Eli. So you have Vahibitu, which is they will look, Eli upon me. And if you notice, there's a little circled section there. That circled section is the Hebrew letter Yod. And that Yod, if you notice in the little box to the right, that Yod means me. This little ending to the Hebrew word. Now, Hebrew reads from right to left. So when you're reading this, you're reading from right to left. And that Yod, that little, almost looks like a little quotation mark, that Yod is what's called a pronominal suffix. And pronominal suffixes in Hebrew tell you who the subject is or who the person is that's being spoken of. And as we look at this, you'll notice it's Eli, and that Yod means me. So the question is, does it mean me everywhere in the Bible when a pronominal suffix is used? And the answer is yes, it does. It's so consistently true that you gotta go, hey, if Watchtower had real translators, they would have known this. And in fact, they would be covering stuff up if they actually know this. And I would say if any of them do know Hebrew, which I doubt any of them actually do, but if they did, then they're involved in a cover-up. And then they're telling you not to question them or you're going to get disfellowshipped. That's what a cult does, because they have an agenda. They don't want you to look at the evidence that might challenge that agenda. And we're going to challenge their agenda today. So let's look at this. What is a pronominal suffix? And a pronominal suffix right here is it communicates the person and the gender and the number of the person. And so this Eli means to me or upon me. And to me, upon me, they will look to me, they will look upon me. Those would both be valid translations here in Zechariah 12. And we're going to go through. There's hundreds, there's over 400 places where Eli is used, and they all are translated with the word me. But let's just get back to this. So Hebrew pronominal suffixes. In fact, this is something from an introductory textbook. I have two of them in my own personal library. This is from one. It talks about pronominal suffixes. And another one, a different book, talks about pronominal suffixes as well. Sounds like pronominal suffixes are Hebrew 101 topics. In fact, they are. There's no way you could pass an introductory Hebrew class without hearing about pronominal suffixes. They're just something you have to know, or you're never going to be able to read the most basic Hebrew sentences in the Bible. So this isn't something that really, if Watchtower had real translators, they would know about pronominal suffixes, and they would have to be really honest that that's the suffix being used here. But they don't talk about it. They don't let you challenge them. And I would say that's a clue. They don't really have any translators. They're just making up the fact that they have translators. In fact, they don't have translators. That's my whole point. So let's take a look at this. Let's look here. Here's the Hebrew. So we've got a preposition here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through prepositions. So ale is a preposition, and I'm going to look through li as a preposition. And if you look here, li is to me, and you notice this is a chart straight out of one of my grammar books. And that yod again means me, to me. Well, what about with other prepositions? Well, let's take a look. Oh, well, I'm sorry. All right. Those are my grammar books. I forgot to put that slide earlier. So what about imi with the yod at the end? Well, it still means me. What if it's li, to me? Yod still means me. What about if it's bi, as in? Does the yod mean me when I use it with the word in Hebrew? Yep, pretty much. There isn't anywhere that yod doesn't mean me. So Watchtower's making stuff up here. That's just plain and simple as that. So here's what I want to show you, okay? So let's take a look at all these different places where Eli, which happens to be the very expression in Zechariah 12:10. There are over 400 instances of this. I'm probably going to go through, I haven't counted here, but I think I have about 200. And look at how often the word me, the pronoun me, is intended in all of these different verses. We're just going to go Genesis 4:10, to me. Eli has me. You have Genesis 18:21, me. You've got 24:40, me. 24:44, me. Genesis 4:10. Some of these are a little out of order. Sorry. Me. Well, let's just keep going. Me. I can go slower if you want to go through each of these. In fact, I'm going to provide a link to this document so you can look it up yourself. But notice this. It's me. This is all the places that Eli is found, and that yod in every single one of them is me. Me. Deuteronomy still means me with that preposition. Me. Okay, that's going to get annoying. But why don't I just scroll through it? I don't have to keep saying me, but you'll see that pronominal suffix always means me. So here we go. Here's some more. Deuteronomy, Joshua, where it's found, me. So we have a preposition with a yod as a pronominal suffix. All of these places, it means me. Me. So there's some basic Hebrew translation right there, and you've learned about pronominal suffixes, and when you see a yod at the end, it means me everywhere. There isn't a place that it doesn't mean that. And in Zechariah 12, let's find it here. Zechariah 12:10. There it is, a yod, pronominal suffix for the pronoun me, is what's being used. And that means that the proper translation is this. God is saying, I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of pleading, so that they will look at me. Who's talking? God is talking. So what is it saying? So they will look at me, God, God, whom they have pierced. And they will mourn for him like the one mourning for an only son. They will weep bitterly over him like the bitter weeping over a firstborn. God is saying that you're going to mourn over me like a firstborn child. You're going to see me, the one you have pierced. Pronominal suffix, yod, means me. And it means that everywhere in the Hebrew Bible. That was easy. All right. Well, my name is Pastor Greg Thornberg. I'm from Redemption Bible Church in Casa Grande, and you have been listening to our podcast.